The parable we just read is in the Gospel of Matthew, and he's the only apostle of the four Gospels, the only Gospel that bring in this parable. We can find it in the chapter 13 of his Gospel. Beside this parable, there are four others: the sower, the mustard seed, the hidden treasure, and the net. Usually, when Jesus delivered a parable, right after he explained the meaning of the parable, but not on this occasion. He said the parable, then Matthew put in right after the parable of the mustard seed, and right after he explained the meaning of the parable. It seemed to me that this parable is quite obvious, the meaning, and it was unnecessary for the explanation. The fact that it is given right after another parable seems to suggest that Jesus himself didn't explain the parable right after. Maybe it was somebody sometime after that put on that explanation that to me seemed unnecessary. For this reason, instead of trying to analyze the parable, I am going to consider three different lessons that is possible to withdraw from this parable and connect with the epistle of Apostle Paul to the Colossians. And the first lesson that we can, or that can be drawn from this parable is patience. Something that I don't have it. That's why I say it. So this, I feel uncomfortable about giving it the homily, because usually when people go to a church and the celebrant delivers homily, he's just preaching to the crowd, telling them what to do, what not to do, what is right, what not right. So I don't consider myself that I am in position to tell anybody that kind of advice, he will listen to you. But here we are. So it is my intention just to, I analyze it and say, well, to me it seems that I could use this point of view to improve my own attitude. And passing is something that I don't have it. I like to do this and it has to be done right away. And this parable seems to be oriented to the future. When people seed, any kind of seed, a bit tomato, cucumber, whatever, you don't collect the fruit, we don't collect the fruit right away. We have to wait some time. It takes weeks, sometimes months, to get the seed into food, harvest, cook it, eat it, etc. So one of the things that that is possible to withdraw from this parable is that patience, not to rush things. Apostle Paul also in his epistle suggested the Lord to be patient with one another. So I think when the church put together the epistle, the gospel, the prayer for this liturgy of today, had all things in mind, the theme of the liturgy. So that is one thing that I see that can be learned from this epistle, from this parable. The second that I think could be also important for today is that life is not a matter black and white. It was not easy for the owner of the farm to take the weeds at the beginning because it will harm the seed of the wheat. So I think that life is also quite complex. We tend, I do, it's black and white, but in politics, I say, oh, Donald Trump, blah, 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 blah. But in real life, it's not that easy to see where good and evil start. It's not a matter of black and white, but it's not easy to find a solution. Sometimes it's very difficult. I have situation, problem, that I like to find a solution, and I just don't know what will be the right thing to do. In Canada, especially, we have people coming from, not too long ago, the TV said that in Toronto there are people of every country on the planet. In one case, I forgot the country they mentioned, there is just one individual, but there is a representation in Toronto of every country. Different races, different ages, different religion, different faith, sexual orientation, etc., etc. So life is not as easy as this is the end and this is the beginning of something different. We must have, we need a lot of patience with one another, understanding, capacity to forgive one another, and like Apostle mentioned, kindness, mercy, meekness, patience, and above all, love. So if we deal with one another out in life with this advice that Paul gave, I think life on earth will be a paradise. Unfortunately, that is not the case, but I think that we need a huge to deal with the challenges and difficulty of life. Human beings will be much better if they use understanding with one another, compassion, meekness, forgiveness, love, etc. The third lesson that I will draw from this parable is not to rush to judge others. And I again say that because I need that advice. I tend to be hasty. We should be keeping in mind the situation of the owner of the farm told his worker not to try to put the weeds out because it was too soon, and they will be pulling out also the wheat, and then they will harm the person. So when we are dealing with one another, we may, people in general, tend to make people either wheat or weeds, good and bad, and we rush. When we say, I don't include you, in general, to rush people, to rush and judge other people. I only thought, for many years, the first time I read that saying of Augustine, that God is more present in us than we are to ourselves. Somewhere, I don't know where, I read that the human conscience is like a bottomless abyss and pitch dark. Only God has access to that kind of darkness. We just cannot, because of external actions, we just cannot, we shouldn't say with this person is sin or whatever. That is beyond our capacity. I was, after I prepared this word, I read what you gave to me in the Catholic register about Father Ron Rohaiset. I suppose, I'm sure you read the article. And it commented, I like the whole article. I underlined that, but I'm going to read something that caught my attention. Catholic moral theology has always taught that sin is a subjective thing. that can never be read from the outside, or read from the outside. We can never look at an action from the outside and say, that is a sin. We can look at an action from the outside and say, that is wrong, but that is different kind of judgment. So I think that, and then he called later, and this will be the end of this, my word, regarding judging others, in what Jesus said, you judge by appearances. I judge no one.